speaking, apart from the chair, who does not need to mute their mic at any stage. If you're referring to a specific page number or picture in the report, please refer to the page number. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function in the Google Meet to alert the meeting. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the committee or to make other comments. Any persistent destructive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you very much. I can hear beeping in the background. I don't know if that means we weren't live streaming or whether we've only just started live streaming.
I believe we was live streaming. I think someone was maybe joining in the meeting.
Okay, well, it looks like everything's correct from what I can see, so that's good. Thanks very much for joining us this evening on our February Cabinet meeting. For those watching at home, obviously this is our regular monthly Cabinet meeting. Clearly this afternoon's been dominated by the Prime Minister's announcement on the government roadmap to cautiously reopening the country and our economy. I think we all know how difficult lockdown has been for the borough and for our country, but it obviously has been, as we've seen with the recent rates of COVID prevalence in our borough, it has worked. It has brought down those COVID rates from peaks during the new year. And I think all of us really welcome the work that the whole NHS locally and the council supporting them are doing to see the rollout of the vaccine. And that is obviously something that is a deeply hopeful moment for the borough and for the country. I think we're all continuing to absorb what the roadmap that the Prime Minister has announced today means for the various sectors of our economy and public services, including schools reopening. So I won't comment much more on that now, but we know that cases in Hackney are still historically high. Some lovely images from the Homerton Hospital of patients leaving hospital today who've been battling COVID for many, many months. So I think that's a sobering reminder that COVID continues to have a huge impact on our residents and our local health system. We continue to see tragic deaths in our community, and we're probably approaching that 500 resident mark at some point in the next month, which I think should be sobering for all of us. And obviously last week we also saw 9,000 more residents following the Q-COVID work added to the shielding list that the council is supporting, and that also has implications for those that are eligible for vaccines in the clinically extremely vulnerable group. So just urge everyone to recognise that lockdown didn't end today. Lockdown won't end until the 8th of March, and even then it's a staged process after that. So following the guidance is obviously incredibly important as we continue to bring down the rates of virus and see more and more of our friends, neighbours and relatives vaccinated. I'll probably stop there and move to the main part of the meeting, and clearly all of us recognise that some of the items this evening around the budget go to full council on Wednesday, and I'm going to save my substantive remarks for the budget debate at full council. Apologies for absence. I haven't had any so far. I can see most of us on the call. I think Moema. Okay. Any others? No. Great. Urgent items of business. We've got one item under item 15, which is a special urgency report, but we'll cover why I've accepted that as chair later on in the agenda. But obviously those papers were circulated and published after our original publication date. Are there any additional declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Kennedy.
Capital update report, item 10, Chair. I have to declare my daughter is a pupil at Clapton Girls Academy.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Any others? No. Well, thank you. Item 4, notice of intention to conduct business in private. I haven't received any representations on that. I haven't also, through the monitoring officer, received any deputations, questions or petitions for Cabinet this evening. So moving on to item 6, which is the unrestricted minutes of our last Cabinet meeting on 25th of January. Are we happy to approve those minutes?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you.
Agreed.
Minutes of the previous meeting, Cabinet Procurement, held on the 18th of January. Deputy Mayor Renison. Anything you'd want to add? As set out, fantastic. We're happy to agree them?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. So item 8 is, it says here general exceptions report, but it's the main budget and council tax report. I think it was slightly late going on the forward plan was the issue here. Do you want to elaborate, Dawn?
Sorry, yes, that's correct. We were late by 2 days with the report being placed on the forward plan, and so that's why we are taking it this route this evening. Thank you.
Okay. But it was published on Friday, was my understanding, a week or so ago. So it was published in time for the meeting in terms of... Yes,
the report has been published in time for the meeting, yes, and circulated. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to clarify that and separate out the two types of exceptions that we're doing this evening. I think it's important for people watching at home. This is a recorded vote on the budget. As I say, I'm not going to speak to it substantively, but just to thank especially Deputy Mayor Renison, but all of Cabinet colleagues for their work on the budget, and finance colleagues and communications colleagues. And of course, the Hackney management team for their work, not just over the past month, but almost since the last budget was put to bed. Obviously, an exceptional time with COVID and the cyber attack, and I think that's reflected in the budget. But I think it's something that we can be proud of. It definitely continues to see an investment in our values, especially around poverty reduction and obviously the future infrastructure of the borough, and rebuilding that better Hackney that we all want to see. Unless anyone else has any other questions or comments, I'll put it to the vote. No. So who's reading the roll call?
That'll be me, Mayor Glanville.
Sorry, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Okay, if you could just indicate whether you're for, against or abstain, please. Okay, Mayor Philip Glanville.
For.
Deputy Mayor Antoinette Bramble.
For.
Deputy Mayor Rebecca Renison.
For.
Councillor Suzanne Vajana Thomas.
For.
Councillor Chris Kennedy.
For.
Councillor Guy Nicholson.
For.
Councillor Cleon Mackenzie.
For.
Councillor Carol Williams.
For.
And Councillor Caroline Woodley.
For.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you. I think that's approved, which is excellent news. And we'll obviously return to that next at the full council meeting. So moving on to item 9, which is the OFP Property Disposals and Acquisitions Report. Deputy Mayor Renison.
Thank you, Meg Glanville. I won't be quite as succinct as you, but I will try to be quick. So presenting this OFP, you'll see from the figures that we've set out that we are cautiously optimistic about our end of year position. I know officers on the call would want me to stress cautiously in that there's a huge amount of unknown in the COVID spend going forward, or from the point at which this forecast was made. But what I would like to draw members' attention to is we have set out a little more detail about certain measures that relate to the budget, which is obviously relevant for both tonight's budget decision we've just taken and for Wednesday's discussion at full council. In particular, we've set out more details in this overall financial position around the saving decisions we're having to take in order to balance our budget for the coming year. That's savings totaling 11 million, and I think it puts into stark reality what the government's end to austerity means in practice for us here on the ground in local government. So we provided more detail on some of those savings in tonight's OFP report. I'm hesitating as I say that. I'm pretty sure we put them in. Yeah, sorry. Juggling too many different reports. And it also sets out details of how we're going to be delivering direct support to some of those in the lowest incomes in the borough. And that's taking additional funding we received for council tax support and passing that directly on to those on our council tax support scheme here in Hackney. So that'll be a £60 off the bill of working age CTS claimants in Hackney for the coming year. It's worth drawing everyone's or reminding everyone that pensioners and care leavers can already claim the entirety of their council tax bill back in council tax support. We will also be taking forward work in coming year, looking at how we deliver on that commitment to take our council tax support scheme back to 90% funding and eventually back to being a fully funded benefit. But other than that, as set out.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renison. Does anyone want to contribute on this item? No, just again echo my thanks, and especially the unpacking there of some of those positive poverty reduction measures. Are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
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 Okay, item 10 is this month's capital update. As set out, I would obviously highlight, as Councillor Kennedy has, our continuing investment in our schools. There's also quite considerable investment in the infrastructure to support our new ambitious parks and green spaces strategy, and some of our further work on climate and air pollution. So with those highlights, does anyone want to debate or discuss the report? No. Okay, we're happy to agree.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed.
Agreed.
So item 11, back to Deputy Mayor Renison on bringing in services the Hackney insourcing model, which I know is an incredible piece of work that Deputy Mayor Renison's been leading with our equally incredible procurement colleagues and others across the council. And I know it's eagerly awaited. So Deputy Mayor Renison.
So hopefully this time I won't forget the contents of my own report midway through, but this is an absolutely fantastic report to be bringing to Cabinet, and I'm delighted to be bringing it this evening. And I suppose especially pleased I'm able to bring it just before disappearing off on maternity leave, because I would have been really disappointed not to see this particular piece of work through. So as everyone will be familiar, this delivers on our 2018 manifesto commitment to look at how we really step up our commitment to insourcing here in Hackney. And we've been clear from the start that we didn't want this just to be a sort of flippant or quick, easy win comment, quickly said, but much harder to deliver. And we've really put in the work over the past couple of years to develop a framework and a structure that means we can take forward insourcing in a really committed way here in Hackney. I have to thank officers, Rotimi, who I don't know if he's on the call tonight, but in particular for just the commitment he has given to insourcing and the way he has pushed it across the council. And really the model we're bringing forward this evening is the product of the past 2 years work of sort of testing, working with service areas. For those that come to Cabinet Procurement Committee, you'll know the challenge that is given to services that want to still procure and go outside of Hackney to deliver services. You'll know the challenge that is put to them as to the rationale for that, and the requirement and expectation that they set out how they will long-term bring those services in-house wherever this is possible and develop the skill set and resources that are necessary to do that. The paper sets out details of the services we've managed to bring in to date, and it shows the range of services. Again, huge thanks to officers from across the council for the amount of creative thinking actually that often goes into looking at how we can deliver services. For anyone that has ever worked in insourcing, you'll know it is not as simple as drag and drop, and in fact that's quite a dangerous attitude to take. It often involves service redesign, relocating services across different parts of the council, and thinking and taking quite a different approach to service delivery than we might have done in the past. So a huge thank you to all the officers that have engaged in that today, and those that I know have quite exciting plans going forward for how they're going to develop insourcing further in their service areas. And you can see from the report the range of services we managed to bring in, and I always have to give a shout out to fleet maintenance as one that I find particularly fascinating for the challenges. But you can see there that we've actually managed to bring close to 400 staff, or have the commitments in place to bring close to 400 staff back in under direct council employment, which is obviously incredible in terms of the services we can deliver to residents. Coronavirus has shown the importance of flexibility and being able to turn services around rapidly. And obviously when you deliver them directly yourselves, you're able to do that. It's also fantastic, and I look at Councillor Williams as I say this, but in terms of the offer we're able to make to our staff, bringing those staff back in on Hackney terms and conditions once they've moved over, and the opportunities we're able to offer with that. So this is not the end of our insourcing work, it just simply marks the next stage. There is still a huge amount to do. The length of some of the contracts we're talking about, the size of them, this is a piece of work that will take years to fully deliver. We're also very keen to take forward further how we make sure this aligns with our sustainable procurement strategy. Because again, going back to that point around easy wins, the simplest thing would be to bring in some of those services, smaller services, the kind that we're probably currently commissioning local businesses to deliver. Those would be very simple to bring in and would be cutting off vital investment in the local economy. So we have to work out how we balance that sustainable procurement strategy, a commitment to the Hackney Pound, and also how we bring in as many of our services as we can to deliver that high quality standard of service Hackney residents rightly expect of us. So a huge thank you to everyone for all their support, both officers and members and guest members to this point. And I'm delighted to recommend this report to Cabinet.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renison. I think that just illustrates why it is indeed the Hackney model and why this is such a considered piece of work. It has taken our political values over not just the current administration, but previous administrations, and continued that work and signalled where we will go next, and providing a framework for doing that. And obviously, insourcing doesn't always lead to immediate savings, and I think you, Deputy Mayor Renison, are really clear about that, both at CPC and in broader political discussions. But obviously they do form some of the savings and service reconfigurations that we're able to do to support this year's budget, but also previous years' budgets and work. And I think so many councils up and down the country talk about insourcing and think it is just that drag and drop and then get stuck. But actually what we've got is a real track record, and I think, you know, Rotimi deserves our thanks for that team, but obviously there's a real depth around him there. We've also grown our DLO, and I know that Councillor Mackenzie is incredibly proud of the work that has gone on there. And I say, when I do some of the roadshows with Tim and move around the borough, that talking to staff teams that in other parts of the country would be outsourced teams. They wouldn't actually work for the council at all. They wouldn't be in the roadshow, and they wouldn't have the terms and conditions that you referenced that matter so much. But also, I think we've seen the resilience of in-source services during this crisis, as you so rightly point out, and I think we're now seeing a sector leaders on this work. Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Just to echo what you said, actually, to extend my thanks to Deputy Mayor Renison and officers on leading in this innovative, forward-thinking piece of work. To thank the officers that personally worked alongside me with the catering service to primary schools awards report that we brought. I suppose the last thing I have to say, Mayor Glanville, it isn't just about the insourcing, it's the work that Deputy Mayor Renison and officers have done about if you cannot in-source, what you can do around sustainable contracts in the interim. So even if people are outsourcing, there's a clear set of characteristics of how you can still hold organisations to account. And I just think that's really, really a brilliant piece of work. So, you know, well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fiona Thomas.
Thanks very much, Mayor Glanville. I just want to say thank you to Deputy Mayor Renison for the work she's put into this paper, working with officers and with experience, not just here in Hackney, but around the country. We have seen the benefit of insourcing or over outsourcing. So this is a good piece of work. I very welcome. It gives us more control, allows our employee to feel more ownership, as well as giving us more that ability of customization and flexibility for quick changes in the council. So thank you and well done.
Thank you. Thank you both to the Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Fiona Thomas for those kind words and further background. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. So we're happy to agree the report.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Wonderful. Agreed. Item 12 is our motorcycle parking permits, an extensive piece of work. And again, thank you to transport and parking officers that have worked on this paper and the consultation and engagement team that helped support the consultation that took place last year. I think it shows how considered a piece of work this was. We signalled, I think, way back in 2015 in our latest parking enforcement plan that we would explore motorcycle parking permits. The technology that exists now allows us to do it, and also the rationale around air pollution, but also using it as an opportunity to improve our motorcycle infrastructure in the borough. And I know there's aspirations to continue that work with motorcyclists and couriers and others that use these facilities, and also look at what we can do to support what we mustn't forget are also vulnerable road users. It's something I think is really important in terms of our road safety work. Does anyone want to come in on this item? I'm assuming a legacy hand, Councillor Fajana Thomas.
Sorry, yeah, it is.
Okay. Are we happy to agree the recommendations in the report?
Agreed.
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 And also thank former Councillor Burke for his work on this at an earlier stage in the process. Item 13 is the resolution to extend the 6-month rule and changes to Cabinet and Cabinet Procurement Committee memberships and portfolios. So I think, Tim, this is a report in your name, obviously pulls together several issues and updates to governance. And obviously, Deputy Mayor Renison reminded us that this is her last Cabinet meeting before maternity leave. And I know all of us wish her all the best for that, and know that she'll continue to stay engaged as well in that process. But I know that's a very happy occasion for all of us. And also we'll be welcoming new Cabinet members to the meeting next month. And obviously Councillor Coban joins us on the 1st of March, replacing Councillor Burke. But Tim, your report.
Okay, Mayor Glanville, as set out, I just wanted to double check that Councillor Redison has declared an interest in this particular report as it concerns her. So just to make sure that has recorded somewhere, but it's as set out.
It did suddenly occur to me reading that report.
Just trying to keep you safe, Councillor Redison.
You're on mute, Phil.
Sorry. Well said, Tim. We also obviously all know Deputy Mayor Renison by nature of her being a Cabinet colleague, as well as the other named members in the report. But I'm assuming that provides no obstacle to agreeing the recommendations in the report, Tim.
No, it shouldn't do. Just want to make sure people are safe.
Absolutely. Thank you. So declaration noted. I'm happy to agree the recommendations in the report.
Agreed.
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 Thank you. Item 14 was appointments to outside bodies. There are none that I've been made aware of, although I think we'll obviously be updating North London Waste Authority based on the new Cabinet membership at some point following this meeting. Item 15 are any other unrestricted business that I consider to be urgent. I think I mentioned this in my introduction, and I'll just read out how we sort of got there and then pass over to Councillor Williams, whose report this is. Obviously, I accepted that it was an urgent item. The Cabinet has received notification of a special urgency report, which is a grant award acceptance and spend approval for Department for Work and Pensions Kickstart Scheme. The reason this has been submitted as a special urgency report is because the deadline for accepting the grant terms was the 13th of February. A short extension has been requested to enable Cabinet to consider this grant. How it's unlikely an extension until the March Cabinet on the 17th of March would have been granted. This length of delay would also have presented a risk to the significant number of that we've engaged through this programme, and we wouldn't want to lose them given the importance of this scheme. And obviously, I think this is some pioneering work that our Employment and Skills Service has done with DWP to ensure that Kickstarter not only works in the borough, but has extensive employer buy-in. So I'll hand over to Councillor Williams, but I'm assuming we're happy to take this under the urgency items. I'm looking for nods. Yep. Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. So this paper sets out the council's submission to the DWP, as the Mayor said in his introduction. And can I just thank everyone for allowing this paper to come late. And the submission is in the submission we set out our proposal to become a gateway organisation for the Kickstart scheme that the Chancellor announced in September 2020. What we propose to do is then the council's quality approach to the programme, and we're asking employers to pay the higher rate of the national minimum wage rather than the 16 to 18-year rate. Our approach is based on Hackney's political principles, as we heard earlier in the paper around insourcing. And it also underpins our successful approach to the multi-award winning apprenticeship scheme, our traineeship programme, our work placement schemes, and with a focus on meaningful, supported, paid employment with progression routes and without academic requirements. It is not limited to all placements being paid the national minimum, the higher rate of the national minimum wage. It also includes focusing on resident groups who face barriers to employment. And in setting up, sorry, let me just take a breath one moment. In setting up placements at the council with employers, we have put an emphasis on progression routes. This means working with managers to identify routes for Kickstart placements into jobs and apprenticeships. And as with all of our schemes, we are offering wraparound support to Kickstart participants, and employers will also complete a support plan setting out the support that they will offer and provide to young people who are employed with them. This Kickstart scheme provides funding for 6 months work placement for 16 to 24-year-olds in receipt of universal credit. And as I said, they'll be paid their higher rate of the national minimum wage, and we are asking employers to pay the same. Overall, the government's Kickstart scheme does not support a huge number of people, and we've had to take a decision on the numbers that we want of placements that we want to provide based on the rate of pay that we want to give. And that will ensure that we can maximise outcome for young people and ensure that they're able to participate in the scheme, and they will ultimately benefit in the long run. We have been awarded funding for 417 placements, 47 of which are with the council, and 370 of which are with local employers. The financial risks are being managed by balancing the number of national minimum wage placements, offsetting the net income from our projected number of placements. I have no doubt that what we have here is a scheme that goes further than the proposal set out by the Chancellor when he made his announcement in September, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce the report to Cabinet for agreement.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. And I think you've set out exactly why it was right to get involved in this scheme and improve upon it in the ways that you've talked about, alongside of all of our objectives, not only around our own workforce, but adult skills, employment, and obviously rebuilding a more inclusive economy locally. And I think this will play a significant part in that. So thank you very much indeed, because I know it's been a lot of work behind the scenes between yourselves, Stephen Haynes, Andrew Monk, and the teams involved. Does anyone else want to debate the report or happy to agree it in the recommendations? Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Nice one, Carol.
I think that's the best way of saying it. Nice one, Carol. Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Firm sentiments that I'm sure we all share. The item 16 is dates of future meetings, taking us up to the AGM. To note the slightly earlier 17th of March date, which is obviously before the pre-election period, and then the 26th of April. We still, I don't think, have any certainty around COVID Act and virtual meetings as we sit here. So obviously that's something we will have to keep under review. I think we know collectively that we believe that it's really important that we continue with good governance, but also that we keep all members safe going forward. And I know that's work that Deputy Mayor Bramble and obviously members' support teams and governance are sort of looking at when and if we evolve into hybrid meetings and the rest. But obviously we're just looking at 2 sets of dates now, so we're happy to note them.
Noted.
Yep, noted.
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 Item 17 is the exclusion of public and press, given there is, I think, some exempt minutes from the CPC under 18. Is that correct? My notes here aren't quite as clear as I thought they might be. Is that correct?
Apologies, Mayor Glanville, there isn't any CPC exempt minutes
So
for the last meeting.
So there's no exempt item?
There's just any other exempt business that the chair considers to be urgent, but I don't believe we've got any.
There is any, so that's welcome. So we're not excluding the press and public. We've reached the end of the agenda. We wish Deputy Mayor Renison as Cabinet well, but obviously we have full council on Wednesday and look forward to seeing you all there where we'll return to some of these themes, no doubt. Thank you all.
Right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Glanville.
Good night.
Thank
Sure.
you.